All right, so get this. Today we are diving deep into the world of Malayalam cinema.
Oh, yeah.
With this film, Marco, that has got, well, pretty much everybody talking. I mean, it's an action thriller, yeah, sure.
Right.
But it's gone way beyond your typical, action flick. We're talking box office records,
Oh, wow.
critical acclaim, and some are even saying it's giving John Wick a run for its money.
Really?
And I asked you to share some articles, some reviews.
Yeah.
And trust me, there is a lot to unpack here.
Well, what's really captured my attention?
What's that?
Is that Marco is really striking a chord, not just in Kerala,
Right.
but across India and even internationally.
Yeah.
It's not every day
Yeah.
a regional film manages to break through those barriers.
You're right. I mean, 50 crore at the box office in just 5 days?
Yeah.
That's not just a win, that's a total knockout.
It is.
And it feels like everyone's buzzing about the Suni Mukundan guy, too. So what's got the critics so hyped about his performance?
I think they're saying he brings this raw intensity to the role
Oh, okay.
of Marco, the kind that keeps you glued to the screen.
Okay.
And it goes beyond just the physicality of the action.
Uh-huh.
It's in his eyes, the way he carries himself.
Right.
He really embodies this relentless, driven character.
So it's not just mindless action, then?
No, not at all.
The story has got some meat to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the articles that I read highlighted a particular plot point.
Okay.
I won't spoil it for you,
No spoilers.
but it involves a betrayal that cuts deep
Oh.
and sends Marco on this revenge-fueled rampage. That emotional core is what really elevates the film beyond a typical action flick.
I see.
Yeah.
See, that's what I love about a good deep dive. It's
Yeah.
those little details
Yeah.
that make you really appreciate what went into crafting the story.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got a compelling protagonist, a plot that's got some bite. But what about the action itself? Is it really living up to these John Wick comparisons?
Right.
Because that's a high bar.
It is. One scene that really stood out to me
Yeah.
involves this incredibly choreographed fight in a crowded marketplace.
Okay.
Remember that iconic scene in John Wick
Oh, yeah.
where he takes out a room full of bad guys with a pencil?
With a pencil? Yeah.
Well, Marco has a similar moment,
Uh-huh.
but instead of a pencil, he uses, wait for it,
Okay, I'm waiting.
a pressure cooker.
A pressure cooker. Okay, that's just awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just a gimmick.
Oh, good.
The way they incorporate this everyday object into the fight is genius.
Wow.
It's brutal, inventive, and totally unexpected. It's that blend of raw skill and creative choreography that's earning those John Wick comparisons.
So it sounds like Malayalam cinema is leveling up its action game big time.
It really is.
But Marco is also making waves with its music.
Yes.
This Ravi Basrur guy, he's got some serious cred, right?
He does.
Yeah.
He's the mastermind behind the music for the KGF films,
Oh, great.
which were massive hits,
Yeah.
known for their epic soundtracks.
Yeah.
And he brings that same energy to Marco. Yeah, one thing I noticed is his use of traditional Indian instruments
Okay.
blended with heavy percussion and electronic elements
Interesting.
creates this really unique and powerful soundscape.
It's like he's taking those classic action movie tropes and weaving in authentic Indian flavors, which makes sense considering the film's reach beyond its home turf.
Yeah.
We know it's a hit in Kerala,
Yeah.
but what about the rest of India?
Well, the Hindi dub version has been incredibly successful,
Oh, wow.
even in Bangladesh, where they have their own thriving film industry.
Right.
Marco has received a ton of positive feedback.
Oh, cool.
This points to something pretty significant.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here. What's significant?
Well, it seems like Marco is tapping into something universal.
Okay.
It's not just about the action or the exotic locale. It's about the raw emotions that drive the story. Betrayal, loss, the fight for justice.
Yeah,
These themes resonate no matter where you're from.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I guess even with all the high-octane action, at its heart, it's still a human story.
Right.
But are we maybe overhyping this whole global appeal thing?
Well-
I mean, it's done great in India, Bangladesh,
Right.
but is that enough to say it's got legs internationally?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
Marco hasn't had a wide international release yet.
Okay.
So it's tough to say for sure,
Sure.
but the fact that it's captivating audiences outside of its primary language group
Yeah.
is definitely a positive sign.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like a stepping stone. If it can connect with people who might not be familiar with Malayalam cinema, that opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly.
Right.
And with the Telugu release coming up on January 1st, we'll get a better sense of its broader appeal.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how it performs in a market that's known for its own distinct action film style.
Speaking of distinct styles, something that struck me about Marco is how it blends those classic action movie tropes with elements that feel distinctly Indian.
Right.
It's not just a copycat of Hollywood blockbusters. It's got its own flavor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take, for instance, the use of music.
Yeah.
Ravi Basrur doesn't shy away from incorporating traditional Indian instruments and melodies.
Oh, nice.
Even in the midst of these heart-pounding action sequences, it adds this layer of cultural richness that sets it apart from your typical Hollywood fare.
It's like he's saying, we can deliver the same adrenaline rush, but with our own unique cultural stamp.
Right.
And that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
But here's another question that popped into my head. We've been praising Marco left and right.
We have.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
But are there any aspects where it might fall short?
Sure.
I mean, no film is perfect, right?
You're right. Every film has its limitations.
Yeah.
Some critics have pointed out that the pacing in the second act can feel a little uneven.
Interesting.
There's a subplot involving Marco's past that, while intriguing, could have been tightened up a bit.
So even with all its strengths, there's room for improvement.
Precisely.
Okay.
But I think what's most important is that Marco is pushing boundaries and challenging expectations.
Yeah.
It's a sign that filmmakers are willing to experiment, to blend genres and styles, and to create something truly unique.
And that's what gets me excited as a viewer.
Yeah.
When you see a film like Marco breaking through.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder what else is out there.
It does.
What other stories are waiting to be told?
And what's fascinating is that this success isn't an isolated incident.
Okay.
We're seeing a surge of creativity and innovation coming out of the Malayalam film industry.
Cool.
And Marco is just the tip of the iceberg.
So if we zoom out a bit, what does Marco's success tell us about the bigger picture of Indian cinema? Is this a sign that it's ready to take on the world stage?
Well, it's definitely a step in that direction.
Okay.
Indian cinema has always had a rich storytelling tradition. But it's often been confined to regional audiences.
Sure.
Marco demonstrates that with the right mix of talent, vision, and execution, Indian films can transcend those boundaries and capture a global audience.
Okay, so Marco is a box office hit.
It is.
A critical darling.
Yeah.
And potentially a game changer for Indian cinema.
I think so.
But before we wrap things up,
yeah,
there's one question I keep coming back to.
Okay. Well, we've talked about John Wick.
Yeah.
But what other international films does Marco remind us of?
Right.
Does it fit into any other, like, genres or styles that might surprise people?
That's a really good question, because it kind of highlights how Marco really does carve its own path.
It does. There are echoes of those, like gritty one-man army films.
Yeah.
Like even a touch of the hyperkinetic energy of Indonesian action.
Oh, okay.
Like The Raid.
Oh, interesting.
But Marco isn't just borrowing.
Yeah.
It's blending those influences with something distinctly Indian.
So it's not just about, like, mimicking Hollywood. It's about creating something new.
Exactly.
Right.
It's innovative, not imitative.
Okay.
And that's why I'm so excited about the future of Indian action cinema.
Yeah.
Marco proves you can have global appeal without sacrificing your cultural identity.
Yeah, and that cultural identity is woven throughout the film.
It is.
From the music to the setting to the characters themselves. It's all there.
Think about those bustling marketplace scenes.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a backdrop for the action. It's a vibrant, living world.
Okay.
That feels authentically Indian.
Right, right.
And those, smaller character interactions.
Yeah.
The little moments of humor and heart, they all contribute to this really unique flavor.
It's like a reminder that action doesn't have to be devoid of emotion or cultural context.
No, not at all.
It can be a vehicle for showcasing a specific place and its people.
Exactly.
Their stories and struggles.
And that's what makes Marco so compelling. It's not just about explosions and fight scenes.
Right.
It's about connecting with the characters.
Yeah.
On a human level.
Right.
You root for Marco, not just because he's a skilled fighter, but because you understand his motivations, his pain.
Okay, so to bring this all back,
Yeah.
Marco is more than just a movie.
Right.
It's a cultural phenomenon that speaks volumes about the talent
Yeah.
and ambition within the Malayalam film industry.
Definitely.
And hey, maybe it's the start of a new era for Indian action cinema on the global stage.
It could be.
What do you think? Could this be a turning point?
I think it has the potential to be.
Okay.
Marco has shattered expectations and shown what's possible when filmmakers embrace their own unique voice.
Right.
It's a film that demands attention, sparking conversations and challenging assumptions about what Indian cinema can achieve. Who knows what other groundbreaking films are waiting in the wings, ready to capture the world's imagination.
Right.
That's what's so exciting about this moment in time for Indian cinema.
So for you listening, here's a thought to chew on.
Okay.
If Marco is any indication, we're on the verge of something truly special.
We are.
Keep an eye out for more Indian films hitting the global scene.
Absolutely.
They might just surprise you.
They might.
We've talked about John Wick, but what other international films does Marco remind us of? Does it fit into any other genres or styles that might surprise people?
You know, that's a great question.
Yeah.
It really highlights how Marco carves its own path. There are echoes of those gritty one-man army films, like Taken, even a touch of the hyperkinetic energy of Indonesian action, like The Raid.
Right.
But Marco isn't just borrowing, it's blending those influences with something distinctly Indian.
So it's not just about mimicking Hollywood, it's about creating something new.
Exactly. It's innovative, not imitative.
Okay.
And that's why I'm so excited about the future of Indian action cinema. Marco proves you can have global appeal without sacrificing your cultural identity.
Yeah, and that cultural identity is woven throughout the film.
Nice.
From the music to the setting to the characters themselves.
Right. Think about those bustling marketplace scenes.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a backdrop for the action. It's a vibrant, living world that feels authentically Indian.
Okay.
And those smaller character interactions, the little moments of humor and heart, they all contribute to this unique flavor.
It's like a reminder that action doesn't have to be devoid of emotion or cultural context.
No, not at all.
It can be a vehicle for showcasing a specific place and its people, their stories and their struggles.
And that's what makes Marco so compelling.
Right.
It's not just about explosions and fight scenes. It's about connecting with the characters on a human level.
Right.
You root for Marco not just because he's a skilled fighter, but because you understand his motivations, his pain.
So to bring this all back, Marco is more than just a movie. It's a cultural phenomenon that speaks volumes about the talent and ambition within the Malayalam film industry.
Absolutely.
And hey, maybe it's the start of a new era for Indian action cinema on the global stage.
Yeah.
What do you think? Could this be a turning point?
I think it has the potential to be. Marco has shattered expectations and shown what's possible when filmmakers embrace their own unique voice. It's a film that demands attention, sparking conversations and challenging assumptions about what Indian cinema can achieve. Who knows what other groundbreaking films are waiting in the wings, ready to capture the world's imagination. That's what's so exciting about this moment in time for Indian cinema.
So for you listening, here's a thought to chew on. If Marco is any indication, we're on the verge of something truly special. Keep an eye out for more Indian films hitting the global scene. They might just surprise you.
They might.